YouTube, peace and blessings. The Ripper here this evening. I would like to speak on sacrifice and how obedience is the greatest sign or the greatest offering of sacrifice. First, sacrifice means to offer up your life or offer up some desire that you have to God or to the higher power. By definition, that's what it means. So sacrifice is in itself is an offering or something that you offer up to your higher self. Usually when you sacrifice, it is to give up a pleasure or some desire that may be destroying you or may be affecting you in some negative way. So obedience to God and obedience to the law of nature is the greatest form of sacrifice, because usually when we look at this society and the societal norms, it appears that it goes against obedience to the law of God and the law of nature, and it causes us to be imbalanced. It causes us to have mental health problems. It causes us different issues from the effects of this societal and the societal norms and conditions. So really, sacrifice is the only refuge for greater elevation and insight and tapping in to your greater self. So when we talk about semen retention is just a sacrifice. It's a fasting away from some pleasure, some lustful pleasure that can ultimately destroy you, because that is destructive in itself. When it's done outside of the law of justice, you're destroying yourself, wasting your seed, misusing the woman, her misusing the man. That entire process can be seen as misuse and unjust. So before we ask for justice from others, we have to first do justice by ourselves. The main issue we have in our community is that we don't do justice with ourselves. There's no way others will respect us if we don't respect ourselves. There's no way others will even consider considering us as citizens or as the contributors of a society if we don't take up certain responsibility and accountability. If we're just seen as useless eaters or seen as a useless population, then no respect comes from that. So we have to begin to sacrifice these low urges and low desires that are holding us back from growth and elevation. Most people are so low down in their wickedness, they don't even understand that they're there. They just wake up every day and they're just operating out of that low frequency and them low desires. The only way we will come out of that is by first acknowledging where you're going wrong, acknowledging the weaknesses that you have, and then start to execute perfecting it and empowering it. We have to first look at ourselves and start mastering our own weaknesses, because until then you can't look outside yourself at anyone else. You have to first start with self and start perfecting self. When people say there's no perfect person, well, that just depends on what you're talking about, because everyone has the capacity to be perfect. But what happens is we make excuses in being imperfect because we want to bow down to our lower nature. So you can be perfect in the sight of God, and when it comes to your righteous code of conduct, it is possible to be perfect in the sight of God. But it takes great sacrifice, great discipline, and resistance from the low world, the low desires, the low urges that you bow to. These are things that you bow to. And you bow to it, not that you know it's the right thing to do, but it's because you are not strong enough to overcome it. I've mentioned this in the past, most recent video on granting greater sight granted semen retention. I also mentioned that the top 3 things we have to accomplish or master before God elevates us is the appetites of the flesh, the emotional mastery, self-mastery, and then your way of thinking. So those top 3, your thinking, your emotions, and the appetites of the flesh, you have to master those 3 before we even talk about greater elevation mentally and spiritually, because you have to show the Creator that you're serious in your efforts to overcome your weaknesses. Otherwise, you're just talking, you're fooling yourself, because God knows your heart. God knows our intentions and what we really desire and mean. So when you really are genuine in overcoming, God knows it. And as you continue to overcome the trials, once you have accepted that truth that I have to master my flesh, master my emotions, and master my way of thinking, Then from there, trials and tribulations will come up to test you to see, are you mastering it? Then you start to evolve and grow. But the evolution does not start until you show God that you pass the test, basically. Just like with semen retention, the benefits, since a lot of us like to focus on the benefits, you don't even know that, you don't even reap or start to experience the benefits until after a certain period of time, after you're tried greatly. You don't experience the benefits. That comes later, after certain tests and temptations God have to try you to see if you're serious. So we got to stop looking at this in such a superficial way and take it more serious. And if you look at, like I've mentioned, the low desires, that is why people are operating on this low frequency, and they don't even realize it. They don't see it, but it can definitely be turned around. It can be reformed. It's not irreconcilable, but they have to acknowledge that they have the issue. They have to acknowledge that I have to perfect this. I have to master it. So they have to strengthen their will, we have to strengthen our desires, strengthen our will, strengthen our mentality in order to even begin to master self and be accepted by God, because that's the only way that's the only refuge we have. There's no refuge in anything less than righteousness and sacrifice of the flesh. There's no other refuge, because if you seek refuge in your flesh, you will surely die. You will be unsuccessful. And that's the problem. We equate success with superficial things. We don't equate success with mental and spiritual elevation. We equate success by this worldly, societal, man-made crap, and that's not real success. True success means that you can draw in the material world, but you start first with your spiritual elevation and mental elevation. That is the first start of success. And that is what we need to start. We have to really start relearning and unveiling a lot of what we've been taught. And a lot of what we've been taught was for self-destruction. It was to make us slaves. It was to make us subjected to others, to make us more easy to submit to others' power or authority over us. And that's the traditions that have been passed down. So right now, in this day and time, in 2022, moving toward 2023, we have to start unlearning a lot of these traditions and a lot of this information that we have. We have to start questioning things more and stop just going along with it because it's been passed down. We have to start questioning. And I believe that time is here. I believe the truth is now coming out. I can see it happening more and more. But we got to really become mindful and more motivated to want to learn, why do we do these things? Why do we celebrate these holidays? What's the history behind it? Why do we just follow this stuff without questioning it? That's like, you don't have control over yourself. You don't have control over your own decision making, and that shows that you're still a slave when you don't think critically and think for yourself and question things. You know, you have to do that these days. You have to, because that's the time we're living in. A lot of truth is coming out. A lot of lies are being exposed, and it's leading to greater knowledge and seeking of knowledge. That's the time we're living in. So sacrifice means I'm willing to give up some desire or pleasure that may not be in my best interest, something that may not be good for me. And if you don't know, then you need to ask the Creator to give you guidance and help you with that, to learn what is destroying you, and ask for strength to overcome those weaknesses. If you can't readily expect what's in your way, then you have to ask God for guidance, ask God for the strength to overcome your weaknesses or whatever these stumbling blocks may be in our path. So let's continue to master our weaknesses. Let's continue to uplift one another and live righteous. Let's continue to build and start to and eat properly, because a lot of this food that we eat is poison and it's destroying the brain as well. A lot of the food that we eat is absolutely destructive of our health and our nature. So let's continue to purify the way we eat as well. If you would like help with that, you can DM me, of course, with the workouts, that as well. My ebook, 7 Simple Secrets to Doubling Muscle Gains. So whatever on a health and fitness level, even spiritual coaching, I offer that as well. So let's continue to uplift one another in righteousness and truth. And let's stand strong, and let's stand up and continue to sacrifice for our greater elevation. Peace and blessings.